Good day to you. This is Anagalactic on the 15th day. Is that right? Yes, it's a Monday here in Chico, California, where we're bringing you the book of Hanokh. And I've attempted to intersperse humor with this highly sensitive and difficult topic, which is the ultimate confrontation between the two parts of humanity, which has now emerged into objective view. And for a wise man, this is an irresistible situation for at least a comment, because I'm a guide. I'm in a long line of guides. And there are all different levels of guides, so don't try to deconvolve that in your mind right away. Just accept what I say because of what I'm about to tell you of inestimable importance. Now, we have been talking about the book of Hanokh. What I'd like to discuss today, to put this all in context and to readdress the issue of the flood and the creation of Adam and the speciation of the animals, which I have not gotten to yet. There was speciation. There just wasn't speciation of mankind. And the speciation of the animals had to be in under 10,000 years, for which there is no mechanism yet discovered. And science is, of course, way off course. But that's understandable if you understand the context of the war and the game. There is a war going on to the death, and it will affect you. It will either kill you or you'll somehow find a way out. That's the war and the game. There's a war that began long before humans. There is a game that involves humans. We're not actually the players, except that's very difficult to determine, but it is objectively at least assertable. It doesn't look like we're the players. We're not the players of the game being enacted on Earth. The players are obviously not here. And of course, all of this is highly controversial, extremely sensitive stuff, for which men will kill each other at the bat of an eye. It's the most volatile and ultimately destructive subject that can be brought up in polite human conversation. Now, scientists are the most polite people on Earth, which is why I take exception to the way science is going these days. Obviously, somebody hasn't read the instruction manual for a scientist, which is pretty basic and easy, but we're human first. And that means that the worst side will come out. It must. Hitler was just a symptom of what's going on with humanity. Now, we all know this, but we avoid the topic. In the East, which you could just say is like Iran, Saudi Arabia, anywhere where there aren't white or black people would be the Middle Earth. Middle Earth is not reserved to J.R.R. Tolkien, the fantasy writer. Middle Earth is what I say it is. And that's where the brown people live. Those are 70% of the humans who've ever lived, including right now, are brown. And about half of them are the Semitic people. And the other half are the Oriental people. And this is due to what happened after the flood, which is extremely important to get a clear, objective perspective upon. And by the way, the thing about the preposition at the end of the sentence, you may not be old enough to remember this controversy, which is basically English grammar being fine-honed. To where does a preposition go? Well, for a long time it was thought the preposition was totally inappropriate at the end of the sentence. For what we've been looking upon, well, how do you change that? There are exceptions, but the general rule was the preposition does not go at the end of the sentence. I was able to prove, after all of these decades and really centuries of bitterness about this really remarkably simple issue of grammar, for which the English are remarkably famous. It's not really a good mark, but it's a sign of meticulousness at least. And I participated in this. Just to give you an example, I used to read Fowler, where he defined every difficult word in the English language masterfully. And I read the whole goddamn thing almost, which is so unusual as to be queer. So, so I am a grammarian. I'm an English expert. But what I proved is the preposition always goes at the end of the sentence unless it can't. So I overturn everything. I'm what's called an iconoclast. In another context, I'm a prophet, but it's not exactly the same thing. And I don't claim I am a prophet, although I do say that I am. What I say and what I actually think are quite often two different things because I know you. And I'm always playing to my audience because I'm not here to just listen to myself talk. Although I actually don't care whether you're here or not. I am here to listen to myself talk because you're not ever going to listen. I have to assume that. But I also have to assume that I have a job to do to get you to listen. So I had better be right, but everybody thinks that. Everybody thinks they're right in science. That's one reason why we're scientists. We're sick and tired of being taken to the cleaners. We want to get around all the subterfuge and do everything rationally. And now there's this very interesting offshoot of that called the atheists. The atheists are, by definition, wrong. Whatever they say, it's poison. Because they're atheists. Nobody's atheist who's in their right mind. You can't be an atheist. It's not allowed by the universe. If you think you're atheist, you're wrong. And if you continue to say that you're an atheist and children hear you, you're going to burn in hell. And that is absolutely dead fuck certain true. That's what the Prophet of Islam said. He says it on every page of the Quran. You're going to burn in hell if you don't bow the knee to your Creator and mean it. Well, that's a personal decision. You better get around that little naivete, you little queer. No, it's not optional. And you can't be a scientist if you don't believe in a creator. And when I say believe, I had promised to cover that topic. What does it mean to convert to Islam? Now, in the West, we would normally say Christianity, which, if you know what you're saying, is correct. But what is it that you're submitting to? The creator is very closely related to the concept of God. And the big difference between the term the creator for deity and God for deity is their absolute opposite words, in the most important sense of opposite. That one has no meaning and the other one is precisely accurate. And of course, God means nothing. It means whatever that person wants it to mean, and that's why that term is hated. Or at least the people who say God and think they know what they mean by it are attacked by rationalists, and I'm on the side of the rationalists on that one. You never talk about God in science, but in science you discover the creator, and it's your first discovery, and it's the bar mitzvah of every scientist, is when you come of age, you definitely figure out that you have a creator. And it's like the Gom Jabbar. If you ever read Dune and you know about the B'nai Gesserit, a semi-covert band of women oracles who take drugs in the future on the Dune planet, and they have a certain legacy of magic. They know a lot. So they're real witches. So it's really quite a story in Dune. But the reason I bring it up is because of the Gom Jabbar. And if you do know what it is, you're probably getting excited because you remember what this is. But it's when they need to test a being. In the future, beings may look like humans but not be human. And they need to actually know. And they have a way to find out. They put your hand into a box. And they put a needle to the edge of your neck where you can feel it, and it's going to stay there. And you can't budge, you can't move. And if that needle goes in another centimeter, just tick, you'll be dead in 5 seconds. Actually, well under, according to the story. So that thing just goes, dick, and you're dead. And they will kill you, and they tell you, you'll die if you don't do this right, so we're just going to test you. And the whole thing is a trick. And I'm not sure if the hero who underwent this knew all the ins and outs of what he went through, but it's very well described. It's a torture scene where your hand in this box this is high technology, for which Dune is well known, although it's really noir. It's like being in Transylvania in the age of Dracula with high tech. So it's a weird movie. But they stick his hand, Paul Atreides, they stick his hand into this box and stick the needle next to his neck. And then they burn his hand up. They burn it to a crisp. And it feels just like it, but it's actually not happening. But because they know about nerve ending control and this technology is really advanced, there's no way you can tell the difference. Your hand is burning up to a crisp. And so if you're an animal, which would be the other choice besides a human, that you're not actually human, you're actually an animal, they need to find that out, or they don't know how to deal with you clearly. But once they do know which one you are, they know exactly what to do with you, and then they'll decide. So you don't even know exactly why they're doing this, except to find out what they need to know. So you're not sure. You could easily die. But if you don't die, it's because you held your hand still and didn't thrash. If you thrash, it means it's because you're an animal. Only a human can overcome the instinct to try to pull the hand out, which will kill you instantly if you try to pull your hand out of the flame, the burning, horrific, unbearable. But a human can overcome it. So that's quite profound, I would have to say. And the reason I say that is because of the necessity of a test. I'm going to be telling you about stuff that is so damnable, so hateful. It's not supposed to be emotional. It's simply a set of facts. But the way it's interpreted is just incites murder, murderous desires, because of the truth. The truth has so many levels, but at the level at which I deal with the truth, which is as far as you can go, I take it all the way to get absolute ultimate answers, which is quite rare. Usually we want to stop short of getting ultimate final solutions, which I've proved is the only reason for the existence of science at all, is to get the answers to the questions we really have, which have a lot to do with who we are. And how do you go about getting the answer to who you are, and why would you want to know that? Because there's a game, there's a puzzle, and it's pretty obvious what it is, but that's about as far as anybody gets. There's a game, there certainly is a war behind the game. In other words, this is life and death. You're alive, but you're not going to be alive long. And it doesn't matter what you think about life after death. It is whatever it is. So whoever says something about life after death is not a scientist. It's just someone who's repeating a narrative. Whether you made it up or not, it's just the question is if it's made up. Is it just a goddamn story? And we were brainwashed in the West to think that the further back in time you go, the more unreliable is the information. And in general, that's a very good principle because it turns out to be statistically true. Because people were more superstitious. But there was also a thread of truth. There was a transmission of information attempted by the race of mankind. When and how it began is the subject of the murderous intent. That if you take a position that you claim that you know or at least believe that there was a transmission of information that could be valuable, there's a group of people that will want you dead. And you may say, well, that is just so unfair. Yeah, it sure is, isn't it? There are people alive right now and who rule countries and control enormous stores of armaments and personnel that can be ordered to kill you at any time that are monitoring you right now for statistical reasons. Because there is a presence in humanity of this narrative, which is completely contrary to what the world government wants. The world government is not going to put up with Jesus or God or any form of distraction from your brainwashing. And now it's come out of the closet, and the name of the game is you will not believe in God. You want to make a living, you want to live, you get the mark on your hand or the mark in your forehead. Well, you don't need to interpret that. It's obvious what it means. Someone is trying to coerce you. You either get this mark in your forehead or you get this mark on your hand. This is from the book of the Apocalypse. Apocalypsis, the unveiling, which we're now in that era. It's actually coming to pass now. It just began this summer with the crossing of the first, you could say, the B-1 stealth bomber entering Iranian territory. You can't touch that nation. What the fuck are you doing to Iran? What the hell is wrong with Iran? Well, they're in some way not allied with Israel. They didn't welcome Israel to the Middle East. There was no reason to welcome Israel. I'm not blaming them for lack of hospitality. The Israelis are one of the most brutal people who have ever lived. It's well known how evil those people are. But if you think it's genetic, well, then you can line up behind Hitler to burn in hell forever. Because you blame innocent human beings for the acts of their government or their religion, you're crazy. And Jews are crazy. Not all of them, though. Not by any means all of them. And that leads us into our story of Hanokh, which I divulged to you in the last lecture, but I keep all my lectures self-contained. It is the oldest book known to man. And insofar as we're able to prove anything from that phase of history, which was the very beginning, basically the first few generations of humans at all. And of course, this goes against the evolution theory, but don't worry, I'm just going to sum up everything that I've covered in 3.5 years, and I've kept coming back to this issue, but lately I've been dealing with it systematically. What is the merit of the theory of evolution? Almost none, but you have to split it into the theory. It's the theory of speciation. It does not apply to humans. So already we know there's a creator from indirect evidence. Because if we can't show a mechanistic origin of humans, which we cannot, then it's supernatural. And there are no other choices. It was supernatural. So the origin of humans on Earth has been absolutely closed case proved. Originated with something like Adam and Eve. But then we turn to geology. And when I have my broadband connection back, which I expect to do within the next 1,000 years, I may be dead before then, but if I live 1,000 years, I'll probably have enough money to get my broadband connection back, which actually technically no longer exists and there's nothing to get back. But without that, I'm not going to go to the Colorado Plateau or show you the Grand Canyon sequence. The Grand Canyon sequence, also called the staircase because it goes all the way up to Bryce and Zion National Parks in Utah. You may know that the Grand Canyon is in Arizona, but the region called the Colorado Plateau is one of the most amazing phenomena on the face of the earth. It's filled with such human wonders that I believe a man could study that happily for an entire lifetime, is just study the geology of the Colorado Plateau, wherein is etched the unbelievable, the incredible, the indescribable Grand Canyon. And only geologists have had a glimpse into what those colored layers mean in the Grand Canyon. Now we're talking about the book of Hanokh in conjunction with the theory of evolution and the proof of the flood, because all three of those topics are part of the sacred narrative of mankind. I had begun, and I'm going to begin this way, although this may seem a digression. I hope you have a powerful mind to follow mine, because I am not easy to follow, and I won't be easy to follow here because I attempt things that no other man can even try. I'm very good at this, but you do have to keep up with me. So be sure you understand what I'm doing. The flood is part of the narrative. The creation of Adam is part of the narrative. Okay, so those are two facts. The Grand Canyon is part of the natural narrative that science addresses. The nature of human or animal or plant speciation is the province of science. It's not the province of the sacred narrative. But where these two come in contact, there has definitely been a satanic challenge to the throne of God himself. And that's the signal of the beginning of the apocalypse. We've reached it, and you can believe me, because you certainly can't believe anybody else. The only question is, could you believe me as the exception to that rule? I'm telling you, you'd better, because I am definitely right. And I'm the only man who is right all the way. So that's what we're going to cover today, is what I know that separates me from all other scientists and all other men and women in Islam, as your guide. In another context, that would be called a prophet. That is such a touchy subject, especially with Islam people, because they say that Muhammad, peace be upon him always, it was the last prophet. That's only true in context. It's true enough. It's not a lie that he is the last prophet, but you have to finish that sentence. He's the last prophet of what? He's the last prophet for whom? And both questions have to be answered, or you don't have no stinking prophet. He fulfills both, so he's definitely a prophet. And the reason I say that is because he is the only authority in the past 2,000 years who has credited Yeshua, whom they call Isa, so that's a good name, is Isa. So is Yeshua, which is Hebrew rather than Arabic. But Jesus is a poisonous name in every sense, and you should never say the name Jesus unless you know what you're doing, because you're very close to blasphemy just by saying those syllables, because it shows you're retarded and you're probably a deceiver. Because if you don't know the actual pronunciation of the man you claim to respect, who the fuck should believe you about anything? You're sloppy, you're stupid, you're an American is what you are. And that can be forgiven. It better be, because you don't have any choice when you're raised by monsters. Who is your prior generation? So you are on your own to figure this out. Your society will never help you with that. They'll try to thwart you if they can to get the truth about your origin. So you know where you're from. Not mommy and daddy, not Adam and Eve, you. Where are you from? Well, you're from Adam and Eve. That's been proved, so you will accept that. Otherwise, we just can't continue. And you're going to have to either lower your guard and start believing someone who is wise and knows what he's talking about, or you need to find another hobby. Because I don't mess around with life and death. It's up for obvious reasons. So I hope I've made my point. I'm not dealing with myth, legend, fantasy, guesswork, rumor, or religion in the worst sense, which would be superstition. I don't credit anybody who is not as serious as I am. Because if you're not as serious as I am, you're not going to get it. There's just no way. Well, is there mercy for you? Yes, of course there is. The conception that's been drawn or made or emphasized for whatever reason is that somehow, if you do credit a creator, which you'd better, I'm just telling you, otherwise you're not human. That's where I brought in the Gom Jabbar, was to test you for humanity. Just ask your scientist, do you believe in the creator? And if he says, no, I'm an atheist, then you can just be polite. You don't have to tip your hand. Remember what the Godfather told his boys. You don't ever divulge your emotions outside the family. And that is correct. Your family is in heaven. If you got the way out, if you discovered your creator, maybe at the age of 12, maybe earlier, maybe later, but about the time of puberty, by then, if you haven't figured out that you have a designer, a creator to whom you owe everything, then you are not human. and you will die for whatever reason, but you will not persist in time because you're unwelcome among us. I'm one of the elect, or if I'm not, there are no elect and everyone's wrong. So I am one of the elect. And what does that mean? It's the opposite of being damned. You're one or the other. There's no in between. So what about mercy? That decides everything. Because the Creator has all power. And that's the whole meaning of acknowledging His power. He's the only one who could ever save you. And if anyone says that your only salvation is in Jesus, an Islam person, including myself, will correct you. Will correct you. No, you're not even paying attention to what Jesus said. And I'm saying Jesus because you're an American, so you recognize that word, that sound pattern. But I'm going to switch to Yeshua now because I'm much more comfortable with that, because that's correct. And I am a gentleman and a diplomat. So I am required to be superior to you, or nobody will be superior to you. Well, I'm the answer to your prayers. I am superior to you. Probably in every way that counts. In science, you understand. This is like the cage. And this is a fight to the death. But it's all done with ideas. Which leads to two possible traps. But essentially, the narrative that was handed down really to the descendants of Abraham. Abraham is a very early character, and he's the most important human being who's ever lived, by anybody's account. You would have to include Yeshua as a tie, and Noach as a tie, and probably Adam, for obvious reasons, would be a tie. And Enoch would also be in there, and probably a lot of others, like all the prophets, including the most recent one, if you exclude me, which would be the prophet of Islam, who came around into this earth by the will of heaven, as is fully admitted by his own people. He claimed it for himself. I see no reason to doubt him. It looks like, to me, he has the stamp of approval of heaven upon him. Because what he did was good. Way better than the Jews. Way better. Infinitely better. The golden age of Islam saved Europe. And if you don't know that, well, you just don't know history, but I do, so I'm telling you. Islam is the center of humankind in every way. We know where humans came from. They came from Iran. They came from Iran. You know why? That's where Ararat is. It's actually at the border of Armenia and Turkey. But that's the Iranian plateau. That's where the Ark landed. So we're talking about something that's considered to be by Western pseudo-humans just ridiculous offshoots. The whites are the most pathetic of all the colors. The whites are just notoriously evil. But that really is a tie. The blacks are equally brutal to themselves in Africa. They all live south of the equator, and you could extend that. But all the blacks live south of the brown people, and all the whites live north of the brown people. Has anybody ever pointed that out to you, or have you ever noticed it? I would credit the second possibility far more than I would credit the first. No, nobody ever told you that or pointed it out. Did you ever notice it? You might have. Although I would doubt it off the bat. You probably have never noticed it or heard it. But those are the three divisions of the phenotypical races of man. There are three races of man. And they're all the same genetically, but obviously not. And so if you don't know DNA genetics, you can't explain that. Well, I can, because I do know it. It's the difference between genotypic and phenotypic diversification. Humans only have phenotypic, which means facial features. You could extend it to the whole body, and obviously you would have to. But it's facial features, predominantly, so that we recognize each other for sex. Well, you can't speciate that. That comes from a designer's mind. So just the fact that every human generation, statistically, is based on a sexual conjugation, you can't speciate both a male and female to conjugate. So there is no speciation. What about for plants and animals? Only under supernatural, actual hands-on guidance by the angels. Only the angels can cause speciation among the plants and animals, but they definitely can do that. And we know that absolutely now, because there is absolutely no other explanation. Absolutely no other explanation. For how, after the Chicxulub impactor, when a comet struck the Earth on 10,000 years ago, it was a little less, that's been proved, we were hit by a comet, which destroyed all life on Earth. So how did the animals speciate from the supergenuses from the ark? It was from angels. And I discovered that from the book of Hanokh. And if I had known that 40 or 50 years ago when I first tried to crack this nut, it would have saved me a lot of anguish. Because I was trying to follow the transmission narrative as it was passed down from Adam to Hanokh to Noah to Ibrahim to Yitzhak to Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, who was then selected by the Almighty One, blessed be his name forever. He selected this tiny group of Semites, the Israelis, to be his chosen people for the birth of the elect one. That would be Yeshua. That is who is meant by the elect one. So this was a man who came into existence, we now know that he was the Messiah. So the Messiah has come and gone, which leaves quite a problem for the Jews, the Christians, and ultimately the Islam people, who are obviously involved in all of this. All three groups are exactly the same. You know why? For the same reason all humans are the same. We all have exactly the same problem. So what about the Chinese, who are not even part of the transmission sequence? They have their own. And I trace this. All peoples are blessed by the Great Spirit. There are no subhumans, as the Europeans thought while they were genocidally massacring all the people in the New World because they thought they were subhuman. Because the Catholic Church decreed that those are sinners that need to be slain. Take all their gold and kill them. Kill them all, kill their animals, just like Netanyahu's pronouncement against the Iranian people. Kill them all, as God commanded us. Don't spare their children. Don't spare anything. Anything they touched or tainted, those goddamn goyim, murder them all so that they don't come back. Extirpate them from the earth. Is that what God said? I leave that to your guesswork. But it is definitely a narrative on the face of the earth today that is Israel. And they're doing exactly what they want to do, which is why the apocalypse is going to happen, just as the book of Revelation says. And it's not pretty. So you should be scared out of your wits, but I'm not trying to do that to you. I'm trying to show you the good side. Because even as there have to be some damned souls, Cain murdered his brother, he's going to hell, no question about that. Judas betrayed Christ, he's the most pathetic human of all time, he's going to hell with the devil. All of this is obvious. Hitler is going to hell, yes. Stalin, Trump, all of them. All politicians are going to hell. Dante, the great artist from Italy, I believe it's Italy, Dante, I believe so. The Inferno, L'Infern. It's about hell. Well, he puts politicians at the bottom of hell, the seventh, the lowest, where they're hanging upside down in ice forever. Which does sound uncomfortable. If that's for all eternity, you wouldn't want that. Well, that's a dire threat that the Islam people publish. That is exactly what Yeshua said. You don't believe in my Father, you're going to hell. And no two ways about it. But that leaves open the question, well, who are the favored ones, such as myself, which may make you sick to your stomach, that I'm separating myself from you as if I were above you. Wasn't my decision, darling. I made my decisions according to what I was told to decide. I made the right decision. Have you? Well, that's up to you, isn't it? Sure it is. You're free to kill yourself. Why don't you just slit your wrists and get it over with? You're going to have to face this. There's no question of the truth of the narrative of Adam and Eve. There's no question of the truth of the narrative of the flood. There's no such thing as millions of years. No such thing. That time period does not apply to Earth. There was nothing here before 10,000 years ago. That is so obvious that it's absolutely insane to think that anyone could disagree with that. That this Earth is on the most 10,000 years old. At the most 10,000 years old. Now, was there any matter here before that? That's where your Western scientists decide to stick their tongues up Satan's ass, while Satan is sticking his tongue into their minds. Millions of years, is that right? Well, then you're smarter than God. So the narrative in the book of Hanokh is absolutely critical and was saved until this moment and given to me to express. That the secret of speciation, which took less than 1,000 years, it had to, and there are still traces of the final stages of speciation. And we can find every proof of speciation for the animals and plants, as long as you concede, which you must, it was under supernatural, alien, hands-on guidance. They took the animals and spread them on the earth. Did they have to defy physics for that? Nope, because they can't. And that's the secret of science. Whatever religion says in the narrative, which is the elect one, that's the subject we're coming to. You know what? Let's switch tacks and get to that, because I only have 3 minutes left to broadcast because of constraints of technology. I'm sorry. But what about the speciation of the animals and plants? Darwin was right. It absolutely did happen. It was God who did it, just as he did to engineer the solar system. And that is the truth. And that is the dividing line now. If you can't wrap your mind around that, you'd better find a way. Because as for millions of years, that's satanic. That's a satanic attack on everything holy. Everything that we actually know from science itself, with information that we could only have gotten from the Creator himself. That's been attacked so as to crush it. And that's the name of the game. The war will be executed to its finale. The hideously frightening book of the Apocalypse, on which I am the world's foremost expert for as long as I remain alive, that book states clearly the full extent of what has to happen to fix the earth now that Yeshua was murdered. Actually, according to the most secret plan. It's well known now, among those in the know, of whom I am the foremost, obviously, that Yeshua planned to have himself murdered. And that can be proved. He knew it ahead of time, that he would be sacrificed. And if you think that you could put your feet in his sandals to do that mission, no, you couldn't. He's the only man who is possible for that job. He was definitely the Son of God. And here's my first message to the Islam people to bring you up to speed in the 21st century. You primitive sand people, you're going to have to face the West on its own terms. I am your guide to do that, to kill them all. Not with force. This is not the time of Muhammad, when we need to defeat the outside tribes, to convert them for their own good. Those days are gone. The enemy has already won, and we are resistance fighters in a lost cause that we cannot win because we've already lost. So this is a voluntary mission, not for the sake of your own soul. You can always save your own soul in the way dictated by Islam. You simply acknowledge your Creator and show it. And you do your best until you die, and then you'll obtain mercy if your heart is found right. It's very simple. If you're good, why wouldn't God welcome you to the next level? But if you were evil, you will not go on to the next level. Actually, you will, but it's not something you would like to know about because it'll remind you of all the nightmares of your childhood. The boogeyman in the closet is real. It's called hell. And if you think that this is a game, it is, but not at this level. It's a war. And you've got to get it right. You have got to believe the right man. Welcome to Anagalactic. Thank you for tuning in. Keep looking up. We'll be back with some more facts from the Colorado Plateau and about the book of Hanokh and the book of the Apocalypse, the unveiling of the UFOs from heaven who are coming to invade the earth. And no one will survive it. Thank you. We'll be right back.